Hey guys, continuing with the mental health awareness series, and I am super stoked, very excited to bring on one of my favorite people in the world, my close friend, Kristin Lagan. Kristin is a therapist, she's a counselor, she's a meditation teacher, and she's just awesome, and she's from Nashville, and I'm super excited to bring her on. Um, I'll be bringing her on right now. Oh yeah, I can't wait. Hey Kirsten, hey Lisa. You're gonna love her. What's up? Thanks for coming, guys. Hey!
Hi.
How's it
Up?
going?
How are you?
I'm fantastic. You look amazing.
Oh, you look amazing too, as
No, I look normal.
always. I look normal.
You look fantastic. How
Oh,
are you? You look so good. I'm so happy to see you.
I'm really, really good. Yeah, it's great here in Nashville. Like things are starting to kind of open up and normalcy's kind of coming back into the world. I don't know, but Nashville's nice. The weather's great, and so yeah, all is great here.
Yeah, I have to come visit because I'm in Ohio and I could totally just drive down.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. So,
We're gonna
okay,
make it
guys,
happen.
Kristin is a wonderful meditation teacher. She's a therapist. And what I love about you, Kristin, is that you're also a totally cool mom and a realtor.
Yeah,
So
I
you
do all
have
those things.
you have this like really, really like complete package situation going. And then you're so sincere and you're such a deep student too. You study such good, deep stuff. So I don't even know where to begin.
I know, like some of the stuff is like real deep, and like I have to like reel that back sometimes because I'm like, I might not have friends one day because of the things that I talk about sometimes. Um,
Totally.
but yeah, that's so funny because now I definitely, as you know, I went back to school and I got my master's in counseling psychology. And it was just something that I needed to do for myself to pursue like a path that I'm passionate about. But I also really like real estate. And so I was listening to an interview the other day. I'm like obsessed with Joe Rogan's podcast, and he had Elon Musk on recently. And I'm like, you know what? If Elon Musk can have like SpaceX and Tesla, why can I not be a therapist? And not to compare myself to him, but I'm like, I can do both of these passions just beautifully and greatly. And I think time is something that we either squander or we can like multiply depending on, how disciplined we are. And I think going into mental health, discipline is one of those things that actually makes us really, really happy and proud of ourselves versus this thing that we could negatively think about discipline being, oh, it's limiting my world and I'm not happy because
Right.
I have to go do X, Y, and Z. So
Right. And I think like when we're kids, discipline is like the same thing as punishment.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and
Go
that's
stand in
actually
the
not
corner.
true.
Yeah.
That's really not true. Like in meditation, we're both meditation teachers. I want to say hi to B Solomon. Hi B. Hi Ira. Hi Holly. Hi Bernard and Robbie and everyone. Thanks for the kissy faces. Okay, so check it out. Discipline comes from the same root word as disciple.
Oh, don't like. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so when we are in the discipline of something, it's about discipleship, and it's about being precise. And you're one of the most disciplined people I know. I feel like I'm like so inspired by how efficient and disciplined and professional you are. And I remember one time I was mentioning that to you, and you said something about being such a young parent actually really activated that discipline quality in you.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I think another thing about like discipline
because
in
no one would
general.
look at you and think that you have a teenage daughter.
Well, she just turned 17 last week, so I know. Yeah. Like, what? I mean, my mind's being blown all the time about it.
Yeah. And she's so smart. She's the best.
But, you know, you can fall into anybody all over the globe. I mean, this is kind of like our society in general kind of caters to the victim mentality that we can like place on ourselves. And then I go out into the world and I'm a victim of, you can name 800 things right now and be a victim. And then that's your identification. And you've labeled yourself. And as we both probably love the same quote, like whatever labels me negates me, right? And so as being a young mother, falling into this role of responsibility really, really young, that was, at the time, I never like kind of like thought, oh, I'm so sad I don't get to go have like the college experience that all my friends are having. I'm just like, this is what is happening. Like, these are where the chips have landed, and this is what I'm going to make of what has happened. And I never just kind of fell into that victim, like, oh, woe is me, I can't believe this happened to me. And I think that was the best thing, or the best mental attitude I could have ever approached with it.
Yeah.
Because it kept me just rolling. And if you can just roll with the punches, because life is going to deliver you punches, right? It's also going to deliver you rainbows and flowers, but it's also, we live in a world of polarity, right? And so it's just being able to roll with it.
Oh yeah, and you're just so yeah, you're not only someone that can roll with the challenge, I feel like you embrace the challenge.
I probably seek it out a little bit.
Like, I feel like you just like own it.
Nice
You're such like an overcomer, you know. You're such a go-getter. I remember when you brought me to Nashville, I was like, I don't even know what's going to happen. I had no expectations. Like, my wallet got stolen, my card, like someone spent like $900 on my card. And
that was like, so fun.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm in surrender mode. And I just tried, I could feel my anxiety spiking, you know, because, you know, I was in another place and but I just remember feeling like so safe with you and just like, you know what, it's all good. And, you know, you really did, you made everything happen. You created that beautiful event. You got all those really cool people there, you know, and we brought freaking meditation to Nashville.
That was so fun. It was so great. And then we all had wine afterwards. Like, it was just an awesome event. Yeah.
Oh yeah, then we did a wine tasting. We did a mindful wine tasting.
I mean, yeah, we did it. We did it right, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of my favorite things right now, I think, that I have personally come into a beautiful relationship with is that responsibility. I think as responsibility is actually one of the things that is going to create a really rich and powerful and confident life for yourself.
Okay, and guys, listen to this right now. She's talking about discipline and responsibility, okay? This is a lot.
And I just feel like as a culture, as a society today, we run from those things. Like, oh, responsibility is going to tie me up. Or if I'm not completely free, I'm not going to be able to pursue my passions or my dreams. And I really think that it's actually turning to responsibility and into discipline that allows us, and it propels us in a greater velocity forward to actually achieving those dreams because of the responsibility. And I personally, as you know, like, I fell into that role of being a responsible mother at a very, very young age. That is really the reason why I can sit here with you today and say I've done X, Y, and Z. It's because I had that responsibility. Right. But had I had no responsibility, I'd be on an island somewhere, like serving cocktail drinks to tourists that came in, because I love the sun and I love, being a free spirit too. So I think.
Well, yeah, you're a certified meditation teacher. You're a therapist. You're a realtor. I mean, that's a really cool. Like, first of all, does everyone please want her as your realtor? Obviously, you want someone that can like keep you calm, right?
Right,
Like
right,
keep
right.
you calm and really be mindful and like listen to what it is that your needs really are, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, you're like the
You
dream
know,
come true realtor.
I run that Belmead Boulevard. You and I took you up this road and I said, there's a house that looks like a library. And you're like, oh, that's going to be the Nashville office. And I drive by it all the time. And I'm like, I just envision lots of esoteric books from all over the world, like crammed into this one place. I'm like, oh, that is a dream. It's a castle in the sky and it will come to fruition one day. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me how you got into like therapy, psychology, meditation.
Yeah. So God, it was like super a long time ago. I've always really been interested in other religions. And you know a little bit about my story, but I was raised in a very like a very charismatic religious
Christian.
realm, culture, right?
Yeah,
And
Christian,
I would
right?
go, but I was so interested in other religions too. But I knew that I couldn't really ask questions about it to my parents or to other people in my church. And, I was trying to be that girl that lived in the world, but not of the world. So I didn't make deep friendships with people outside of my church.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so really I had nowhere to turn to ask these like, I'm curious about other religions. So on my lunch breaks in high school, I would skip lunch and I would go to the library and I would take these books about Buddhism or Islam or anything, and I would just read them during my lunch break. And I just felt so kind of bad and like I'm being rebellious, but that was how that really kind of like I was watering that fertile soil within me that was very curious about other things that existed in the universe that just wasn't being spoon fed to me.
Right, the
And
truth seeker.
yeah, and then at 24, Occam's razor theory and Copernicus just blew my absolute mind. And it never stopped from there. And so once I learned that Copernicus was on his deathbed before he actually revealed to the masses that the sun did not revolve around Earth, that we actually revolved around the sun, I was like, what are people actually believing that's not the norm, and or
That
that's
they're
not
keeping in, that they're not
they're keeping
sharing.
in. Exactly. So that kind of began the journey. And then as we share, Paramahansa Yogananda, the Roses, Lake Shrine, that place was just a magical place. And so therefore I went and through the Ananda organization, got my certification to teach, which is a specific type of meditation, but it really engages, and it taught me a lot about the breath itself and how important that is. And Hung Saw, just being able to repeat a mantra over and over to yourself of like, I am whatever that is supposed to be, right? And how
Mm-hmm.
powerful we are as individuals. We have so much power within us, and we're taught to like seek external powers beyond us and the Bible. And I love the Bible and I love religion, but I think that's what Jesus came here to do, is to teach us how powerful of beings we are. And also there was this quote by Zig Ziglar that I just love. And he said that, motivation is something that we all seek and we all desire, but it's something that we lose every day. So that's why it's encouraged to seek motivation every single day, just like bathing. So we bathe every day, we brush our teeth every day. So why do we not find it important to seek motivation within ourselves, to be joyful and not critical? Cynicism is easy, but joy is difficult to cultivate. And so
Mm-hmm.
that same, the Zig Ziglar thing, like when I saw that, I don't know, that quote, I found that quote maybe 10 years ago, and it's been just something that's fascinated me. So like the idea of like seeking motivation every day and how
Mm-hmm.
to help someone say, hey, like motivation is just, it isn't something that just like comes naturally. You have to work at this. Like, this is a garden you're growing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love my friend B says bathing most days.
Oh, I see my friends too. Hi, Dr. Vaughn.
Hi, Dr. Vaughn. Love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, I definitely really resonate with that. And I have to say that from a mental health perspective, discipline and responsibility um, actually are huge. I wish that I hadn't associated both of those things with punishment and with pain at such a young age, because now in my 30s, I feel myself, first of all, being really, really blessed by discipline. Someone recently, I have 3 books coming out this year. And,
Yes, you do.
hustle mode, right?
Fire fingers, you
Yeah.
are.
I'm like, I have one that's due tomorrow morning and one that's coming out tomorrow. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I have a final manuscript due tomorrow and one coming out tomorrow.
You're a badass. That's it.
But you know what? It's discipline. It is discipline. And not that I'm perfectly disciplined, I have a lot more. I can do better,
Yeah.
And
isn't it crazy? Like, we think discipline's going to be scary. It's going to be hard. I would say that, when most people are sad or depressed, it's the discipline of saying, I'm going to have to do something before I actually feel like doing it. And so, yeah. And it's like,
wow.
the action follows, the feeling follows the action. And so it's like, that discipline is so important to engage in, and it's a muscle and you have to build it. But unfortunately, if you're constantly engaged in thinking that you're looking at the screen, you're comparing your life to others, you're like, why does life come so easy for them? And why isn't my life just like theirs? And their life is so great and wonderful. And it's not, and it's like, being able to be disciplined enough to say, I'm going to not look at the screen before bed tonight. I'm actually going to give my nervous system a break, and I might read before bed, or
stretch.
There's so many stretch. Oh my God, stretching. Yeah.
Yeah, you're so right about what you just said. First of all, you're seeing a lot of really great things, but what you just said was so special and important to me. That we don't want to do something. We often want to wait till we want to do something before we start to do it. But you're so right. It's like the law of physics. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. When we're in motion is when we feel like being in motion.
Yeah, inertia, right?
Yeah. When we're working out, it's like 10 minutes into the workout, I start to feel like working out.
Yeah. It's I always picture that image of the man underneath the really big boulder, and he starts pushing, and it's really, really hard at first, and then the boulder starts moving, and then he's barely touching the boulder because inertia, a law of physics, has kicked in, and it's moving itself now. Right?
Yeah, there's momentum you're working with. It's like an energy vortex.
Yeah. So as you know, I'm and
got that.
Everything
I'm
happens
back.
when it's supposed to. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I was watching a documentary on him the other night, and he really believed in this idea of, like, ideas come to you when you are aligned with a certain type of frequency. So everything has a frequency, which sounds like such, I hate that it's like adapted into the world as like kind of woo-woo language.
Yeah.
Like, if you say the word vibe or frequency, or, there's certain words that I try to stay away from, because it's like, oh, wow, you read a book and now you think you're super smart, did you read Law of Attraction? Do you believe in The Secret? It's like, this stuff is really, really, really special. And it's, but when we do tune in to a certain type of frequency, and that is by eating, I believe, it's by eating certain types of food where your
Mm.
serotonin levels can be released. It's by exercising. So your dopamine, these reward chemicals are released in our bodies. And it's your body saying, hey, you're doing a really good job and I want to reward you for it. But these feelings of like, I'm sad, I'm depressed, and I don't know what to do. Well, that discipline has to kick in and you have to get out of bed. You can't stay still. You cannot be a victim because you think you're sad. Your feelings are valid. You are sad and that's okay. What can we do to shift it though? And it's going to be hard and it's going to suck, and like, let's just throw it out and call it what it's going to be, but it will get better. This too shall pass.
Right, right. I mean, you're exactly right. You know, when it comes to depression, for me, I've had bouts of depression, and I've never been medicated for it, but I haven't needed to be medicated for it in my circumstance because of exercise and diet. Because of you've seen me when I've been on different diets, different, you know, I fluctuate with what I'm doing dietarily, you know. And it's like that quote, let food be thy medicine, you know?
Oh yeah. Hippocrates said that, right?
Hippocrates.
Yeah.
Hippocrates, yeah. And but yeah, I mean, the idea is like, there are compounds and nutrients in certain things, just like there are drugs in other things. There are toxins and drugs in some foods, and there are compounds and nutrients in other things. And then also, like you just said, getting the body moving actually does trigger serotonin. Someone was telling me years ago, I had this friend who was like this big built muscle guy, and I was like, I'm like not into working out. I don't get the point of it. I'm not.
What?
You know.
What?
And he was like, dude, I do it for my mental health. And I was like, I think you do it to get big and muscular. And he was like, that's like what started to happen, and I do like that, but that's not what gets me to the gym every day. If I don't go to the gym, I'm not like in the same headspace. And that actually got me, we started to work out together.
Okay.
And I started to work, this is maybe like 15 16 years ago, and I was like, whoa, yeah, working out is like really good. It's like such
and that's
medicine.
a really easy way to see how your outer reality is reflected by your inner reality or your inner state. So I therefore am going to change my body, and I'm going to get to the gym, or I'm going to start eating healthy. As a byproduct, your outer reality starts reflecting that, right? Everything is either a castle in the sky, it's built in the imagination first, or it's built inside. And that's through the visualization, imagination. This is what I want to happen. This is how it's going to happen. Then it happens in the external world. So, like I was reading there's a new show on Nova, like it's on, if I hate the stair stepper and I'll do the stair stepper, but I watch a 20-minute show usually or something on like my Amazon Prime. And it's called Quantum Physics by Einstein on Nova. And I'm kind of obsessed with this show right now. And it was talking about how the mind is actually more real than matter, because matter is moving. Like we just said earlier, matter is frequency. It's moving. Nothing is solid in this reality. Everything can be manipulated. Everything can be changed. But our mind is what actually creates. We're co-creating what our reality is going to look like. So we put so much emphasis and so much effort into matter of the world. What our possessions look like, what we look like, how we are presented in the world, what kind of car do you drive, and what part of town do you live in? But actually, it's the mind that controls all that. And if we can heal each other, if we can heal our mind, then it heals our outer reality. Yeah.
Dr. Vaughn is going to stalk me. Okay. Tuck away. Well, yeah, I really like what you said, and actually it goes back to what you were saying with discipline and responsibility. We have to be mentally disciplined, and then in order to change that reality, you know, I want to I want to get a new house in a new neighborhood. I really like this neighborhood nearby here. It's on a golf course. There's a house for sale that I like, you know, and so the in my mind it begins as the idea of, you know, I want to get this house, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then I start to look at it and I say, okay, so in order to get a mortgage for that house, I'm going to need to put, you know, X amount down, which would be about this much a month. So I need to make sure that I have this much a month to show, you know, and it starts to settle in to reality, you
Yeah.
know, and it's
Yeah.
like the to-do list starts to show up and it's like, okay, you can have that $700,000 house. You need to put 100 grand down and have $7,000 a month. You know, and it's like you start to calculate it and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I don't, you know, and each question builds on the next one, you know, you know, it's the way we talk about it in my family's faith tradition is line upon line, precept upon precept. You
Mm.
learn here a little, then there a little, you
Yeah.
know. And so I think that's, we approach our goals in that way too. You know, sometimes there's this idea, I think another thing, just like you were saying with responsibility and discipline, I had pain and punishment associated with those two words.
Yeah.
And so I wanted a windfall. And I didn't know until I was like in my 20s that that was like a lottery winning mindset,
Mm.
which is essentially poverty consciousness.
Yeah.
Someone else is going to show up and give me $1 million,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
That's the dream, right? I don't
Yeah.
have to work for this at all.
Yeah. And it's going to happen, you know? And I
Yeah.
think, I think it wasn't until I started to realize like, no one's going to do this for me. I have to do it. And then my brain changed. The neural pathways, the way
Yeah.
my brain started to respond was different. I wasn't waiting to find a rich person who was going to like me. You know, not that that's really what I was doing, but I was calculating what I needed to do, how I needed to change
Mm-hmm.
in order to align myself with a realistic timeline where I could actually generate some kind of career or success.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just talking about this earlier. So it's funny when you actually manifesting is actually a real thing that can happen, and it does happen. And I think that when you're tuned into the expectation for it to happen to you, you're kind of tuned into the way that the universe speaks to you, right? So it speaks in a different language. It doesn't speak with words, it speaks with symbols. Symbolism is the language of the universe, mathematics. Uh, it's just
Signs, synchronicity.
exactly. It's
Mhm.
just a very, very different. It's like living in a certain dimension and then saying, oh my God, there's another. I'm going to open that door and I'm going to live in the same world, but then I just added a new layer to it.
Right.
And I, it happens all the time for me. And I was just telling a friend earlier that like this light fixture I've been kind of obsessed with at Anthropology for like a year. I walked in the other day and, well, not the other day, this happened like last year, but either way, I really wanted this light fixture and I just really don't obsess over like light fixtures. So there was something that was really calling my soul to this light fixture. And, oh, hi, Thomas. Thank you.
Hey, Thomas.
Um, and so I really wanted it, but the price tag on it was just not, as a responsible human being, I was like, I'm not buying that light fixture. But I would think about it occasionally, but not like dream about it. I didn't have to have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And probably about 2 weeks later, I walked into the same store and saw the light fixture, and it had like a 70% off sticker on it.
Wow.
And I was like, is it sold? And they said no. And I was like, that's for me. And you know, it's just, and now it's hanging up in my house, and I look at it all the time. And that is just one of multiple examples that I could just rapid fire to you, because
Right.
I'm constantly in awe all the time of like how things just, I have a friend that says I have like a little magic trail that like just follows behind me. And I am starting to believe that, because I'm like, I do believe in the power of like so much more than tangible things, but you know, our mind is creating our outer experiences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that one of the best ways that we can start to exercise that is really through meditation, you
Yeah,
know,
it
and
is, right? That's our love language, right?
yeah, totally. And then the thing is, like, once you start to really develop your ability to meditate, something changes, and you start to, and other things start to get a little bit easier. For me, that's what I really started to notice. I was like, I can learn things really easily. I can process information more effectively. Not only can I process information, I want it. I want more. I want more data.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Um,
But I might need your help manifesting that house, that $700,000
yeah.
house in the golf course over here.
Okay. Well, I'll get on that for you. But the meditation thing for me has been quite like, it ebbs and flows. But there's that, I think it was the Dalai Lama or Gandhi. I don't know which one. Mother Teresa. I have no idea. It could be Jesus.
Jesus.
But it said, when you don't have time to meditate for 10 minutes or for 10 minutes, then you need to meditate for an hour, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
so when I get into that that modality, like in the mornings, and I'm like, oh, I just don't have 10 minutes. I'm like, ooh, I really need to sit down and I need to give this a full 20 minutes right now, because I'm clearly out of balance and I need to shift my priorities
Right.
immediately.
Right.
I'm not I'm not on 100% on that one, you know, but the awareness is there, and I think that's the key to ensuring that you are keeping yourself on the right path, is keeping yourself in check and being radically honest with yourself and saying, "Oh my gosh, my priorities are out of whack, and I need to sit my ass down and I need to do this meditation and love." You know, I don't want to force myself to do anything, but I want to make sure I'm in balance. And I love my creator. I love who I am. And I love that creation, that beauty, that cohesiveness that I get to enjoy, that divine communication when I sit down and I connect my heart with the universe. You know, there's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so amazing, and it's a gift to myself, but some days I just don't have time, and
You
it's
know,
like,
and so that's the thing. It's like, what? Yeah.
yeah,
And something that I always like to remind people: time is an illusion, which is so funny because we were talking earlier about like getting a little too deep and like losing friends. I
yeah.
think you sent me a meme that said, "Me, don't say anything weird. Don't scare these people away. Also, me, time is an illusion." Well, time is an illusion. It's a dimension of consciousness. Time flies when you're having fun. Time seems to drag on when you're doing something you don't want to be doing,
Yeah.
you know. And so when you do meditate, you do have more time. It does tame the system so that you do have more time. One of my favorite quotes is an Abraham Lincoln quote. It's in my new book, not
I
the one that
love
comes.
that. Yes.
Yeah, I love Abraham Lincoln. It's a quote that says, "If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 4 hours sharpening the saw."
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so for me, like writing these books, here's the hardest part. The hardest part is the first 100 words. And it's not the first 100 words of a 40,000 word book. it's the first 100 words per day that I have to write.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. It's opening it and not doing anything else and just focusing and getting those first 100 words moving. And once you get that moving, that's when the fire fingers start, you know?
Yeah.
They start out sort of like cement cold fingers, like marble solid fingers, you know?
Well,
And then it takes a little while. They warm up.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think also, I'm not sure if this is something that you've kind of dealt with or not, but like the imposter syndrome type thing kind of sets into like, who do I think, what do I know? And who do I think I am? And all of that, that is just like these external voices that are coming in and trying to deter you, or that is something that that's a personal demon that I have to kind of slay. That's my dragon that is constantly coming back to me over and over,
you know,
and over again.
And the thing is, other people will sometimes try to do that, you know? It's like, I had a friend that I was doing some work with, and I came up with this idea, and we did this stuff together, and we did all kinds of stuff, and it was, and after a while, I was like, wow, I'm doing everything. These are all my ideas. This is completely mine, and I started to feel like my friend was taking all the credit for it constantly, and I was suppressing my feeling about that.
Yeah.
And then one day it blew up.
Uh-oh.
And in that explosion, a rift happened, a relational rift happened. And then I found that all these areas of intimacy that I shared with that friend were then used as weapons against me, you know? And it was like, and I had shared that imposter syndrome. I was like, who am I? Blah, blah, blah. And then my friend was like, you're a fraud. You're a fraud.
Oh, that hurts my heart. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, you know, of course, where did that come from? That person was hurt. And so they wanted to use, you know, they wanted to also have me experience hurt, you know? And then that's a tricky thing. Like, we have to get over it. You know, we have to get over stuff. We have to get over stuff so that we are not inflicting harm on other people. And we also have to get over stuff and like let people kind of off the hook. You know, it's not about condoning dysfunctional behavior, okay? It's not about condoning criminal or violent or abusive behavior. It's about not saying, oh, just because Kristin was impatient with me one time, that bitch is impatient. You know, it's not a judgment or a, you know, it's like, judge not, you know?
Yeah, right.
Because a judgment is like those labels you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's a label on the forehead.
Ugh. And it's so sad when someone labels themselves as, you know, even they label themselves with their mental illness or something that they're, you know, that's something that's almost like a it's almost like an extra burden you put on your back, and you're like, I have to carry this. And it's like, no, you can let that go. It can be a beautiful part of who you are, but it doesn't have to be a burden.
Right. It doesn't have to be a curse. You know, back in the day, we used to call those things a curse. You know, if something cursed us, it was a burden that was never going to leave. You know, but now, like, what I love about A Course in Miracles is that we can perform that miracle. It's a shift in perspective.
Yeah, it's all the perspective.
See it differently.
Everything. Yeah. I'm kind of on a Shakespeare kick right now. You know, they come and go. Also, Yogananda. Oh, no way.
I'm on a Shakespeare kick right now too.
Oh my God. Like, it just keeps, Shakespeare is just dropping in my life. And I'm like, all right, you said what? And anyway, there's a quote that it's like become a personal mantra of mine right now through kind of everything that's been happening. And there's a lot of opinions and lots of yelling. And it says, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Yeah.
And
that's a good one.
It's that shift in perspective of like, does everything have to be good? What's good for you could be bad for one, and what's bad for one could be really exceptional for another human being, you know? So it's like, Why? And Osho talks about that too, which he's pretty controversial, I realize, but he does talk a lot about not labeling something as bad or good, because what is bad or good? We live in this, Michael Singer talks about it in The Untethered Soul. Like, we live in this on planet, on Mother Earth right now, and we're connected to Father Sky, and it's like, what more could you need? What is good nor bad? Good and bad do happen, and that's just the nature of like being
and it is consciousness. It's perspective, like you're saying. It's nothing's good or bad, but thinking makes it so, like you said. And it's like, there's a book called The Mature Mind by Harry Overstreet, and it's been out of print forever. Buy a used copy and never let it out of your sight. It's amazing.
Okay.
He talks about, he quotes Shakespeare in that particular context, and he also says, look, it's an archaic old way of thinking to think good or bad are the polarities. So first of all, there's context. Like you were saying, something that might be good for one is not good for another. There's not a one size fits all in this reality. Everything's highly individualized. But in addition to that, what they present there was the evolution of consciousness brought us from the idea of good or bad into the idea of knowledgeable versus ignorant.
Okay.
Which brought us into the idea of mature versus immature.
Okay.
And to the pinnacle of orderly versus disorderly.
You know what this reminds me of, which I'm obsessed with, is spiral dynamics. Ken Wilber in the 70s brought this back into play, but it's that like order, chaos. Actually, it's like individualism, community. And as you rise in the spectrum of consciousness, you weave in and out of, like, they're both equally as important. At one point of your life, you're going to need community. At one point, you're going to have to go in and kind of need some solitude to think. And as you climb up in consciousness, it looks like a tornado that weaves in and out, right? And so it's the same thing. It's like how we rise in consciousness determines where we are in immature or mature. And what was the next one you said?
Orderly, disorderly.
Orderly, disorderly. Everything that's ordered has come from disorder, and everything that's disordered will go to order at some point.
Right. It's like the way nature processes things. It's a factor of the universe, and also when we talk about vibrational qualities, and harmony within ourselves and balance and everything. B is asking how we remember all these things. Meditation.
Prefrontal cortex. It's
yeah, exactly.
It's thick.
Yeah, it's nice and thick. Yeah. Well, one of the things I look at is how all the things in the universe are a process. Everything's in process. We don't want to objectify a tree and call it a tree. In English, it's very objectifying. And I think a lot of modern utilitarian languaging limits things and sort of puts a net around things and captures it. A tree, we only see a tree in a brief part of its life process. The truth really is that it is a process, and that's part of why we can't really have judgment on each other, because we're in perpetual motion.
And things unroll the way they're supposed to.
Right.
When we meet someone and we think, oh my God, how could you be, there's a lot of this talk right now of like, oh, that person's still asleep, or did you take the red pill, or did you take the blue? Like, that is just going everywhere, right? That's like the buzzwords right now. And it's kind of like, if someone isn't aligning with your agenda or your specific, we're all playing a role in this magical grand movie scene of life, and I love Yogananda, and I read a quote by him today that said, when something bad happens to you, say that scene is over and it was just a scene, but now it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And remove it from your memory and move forward into more scenes and into other things.
Yeah,
And it's
the next scene.
and one of my favorite things is Taoism, as you know. Like, I just love the Tao Te Ching. I love the way that Taoism works, finding the middle path. Because when we go too far when we swing too far one way, that's where we find depression, the past. When we swing too far the other way, that's the future, anxiety. But if we just stay in the middle, and there's a spectrum, everything's a spectrum. There's nothing is finite, nothing is like, you got to stay in these like boundary walls. It's all a spectrum, but that is where you're going to find, that's where you're going to actually live joy. It's going to radiate out from your heart space. It's going to radiate from your words, from everything you look at. You won't see negativity. You won't see, you just won't see the criticism anymore. You only see the joy in life. Because
right. Okay, you're saying something so important. Okay, so I have this book coming out tomorrow. It's Meditations on Christ, and I got a negative book review.
Yeah.
That, and it's not like an Amazon review. It's like an article someone wrote, and I got a bunch of positive ones, but of course I don't even remember a word of the positive ones. But the thing is, I loved that negative review so much for two core reasons. One, it was really highlighting the exact conversation I wanted to initiate. I knew what I was saying when I wrote that book. And I knew that certain people were going to bristle at certain ideas. Mm-hmm. And I chose to put them in there intentionally.
Yeah.
And she
unapologetically too.
Unapologetically, yeah. Yes. On purpose, not to offend anyone, but to bring a conversation up because it's true and it's good and it's helpful and it's progressive. And it is compatible with traditional Christianity. Anyway, but she brought this up, and it was, her whole tone on it was like, this is not good. Give me 2 out of 5 stars. And but the thing is, for me, I saw the beauty right away. The first thing was, this is the conversation I wanted to have. Mm-hmm. The second thing was, she read my book.
Yeah.
There
was seed sown.
Yeah, she really went through it. My first book's been out for 2 years, and no one's ever written a negative article about it, but a couple negative Amazon reviews exist, like, that are not 5 stars. And I look at them and they say things like, I'm not much of a reader. Okay.
Yeah.
So you gave me 3 stars? Okay. Another one says, the book was wet when I got it. Okay, so it was damaged in the mail. Okay. Yeah. Another one says that they hated the sound of my voice in the audiobook. And so it's like, those aren't that didn't mean anything to me. What I was excited about was this negative review of someone who really analyzed the content.
Yeah.
That was powerful. I was like, that is so cool that someone really, really read it and really analyzed it. I disagreed with what she had to say, of course. She disagreed with what my book was saying, but that was the dialogue I wanted to initiate, So like you're saying, I actually never had one moment of anxiety. I wanted to have the conversation. I wanted other people who were wise and hip to the conversation to engage and participate in it, so it could be had, Yeah. But that's all I wanted. I wanted the conversation to be had, But I was grateful for it.
Yeah. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I had the lens that was positive only. Yeah. And I knew immediately, and it was such a gift. I didn't have to go through that process where sometimes we have to be like, I didn't have to go through that. I just was like,
Yeah.
You know, I was like right in it immediately, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, I sent it to everyone.
I know, I did get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I texted you. I was like, look at this. Check it out. I sent it especially to like, you know, my core people. But I was like,
Yeah.
you know, because some friends are not even responding to me when I tell them about this book. You know,
Yeah.
the level of mental blocks around Christianity or around other traditions, it's thick. You know.
It's really thick. But you know what? Like, that should be. I have triggers, you know. I think I'm a healed human being that, you know, is it just a beacon of light that has nothing wrong with her, right? No, I have a lot of triggers. And I have been, this past year, some of these triggers that I thought I had healed from in my past have been brought and presented back to me. I got excited, just like you did. It was like, I thought I was healed, and I'm not, and I'm deeply not. And this is the very thing I have to lean into, and this is going to hurt, and I'm not going to like it. And I'm excited because
Right.
this is the very thing. This is how I'm going to break maybe some like past generational things that I might still be carrying in my spirit. I have to go into this and I have to break it. And I think it's such a cool realization when something like that triggers you and you're like,
Right.
oh, what? Like, you don't get mad. You're like, oh, there's work to be there.
Yeah. Well, it's like
You're the calling and you're like, I shall go.
yeah, it's like you said, you lean into it, you know, and that's, you know, it's no accident that I wrote a Christian book, you know.
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing. I chose to do that. It's a hard thing, and I chose to do it because it was hard, you know. I didn't do it because
it's the very thing that needs to be in our world today.
I think so too. You know, I didn't choose to write a book on self-love. You know, I didn't choose to write about a book on self-care. Everyone, you know how much easier it would have been to sell those books.
Well, you know, one of the when I say I won't have friends one day, like, I know I'm going to have friends one day because like attracts like, and you know, people will always be around. One of my favorite topics to discuss is the lost years of Jesus. You know, like, I love it. I want to talk about it all the time, and I want to know what people think about it. And it's one of those things that is like, well, why are you thinking so hard about it? Like, it doesn't really matter. If it's not in the Bible, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, but it does. And like, this is really exciting stuff. And like, let's talk about it. And it's almost like I get this negative like feeling of like, ooh, we're not supposed to talk about that, you know, like, yeah. So
and so we're a bridging generation where we're bridging like old consciousness. And I think maybe this is the same for you. When I was younger, I was that old consciousness. It's not that I was only this unusual free thinking person I am now. I was very much at the effect of old consciousness and had to grow through it. So now I'm like, okay, guys, I love you. I see you. I get it. I promise. Let's talk. You know?
Yes,
like,
yes.
You know, like real recognize real kind of thing, you know.
Well,
this has been so fun to catch up with you. We're already out of time.
I know. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, everyone, make sure to follow KK Lagan. She shares really cool, fun, inspirational and spiritual stuff. And let's all bug her until she gives us some kind of meditation course or something. I know you're going to be coming out with great stuff. So everyone follow KK Lagan, give her lots of love, engage with all her posts, and give her tons and tons of engagement, spike her engagement. And honestly, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for everything that you do, because you're just, you are a beacon of light. You really are.
Oh, thank you. So are you. I adore you. Thanks.
I love you.
Love you.
Love you. See ya. Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
See you soon, Kristin. Oops.